one of the things going on with this team, and I actually don't know where you're going with this. And this, I like when there's topics that I have no clue as far as what's about to be said and what we're going to talk about. But this was a topic you just kind of threw at me last minute or last second, I should say, pun intended, and said, "Hey, let's talk about this interesting records." I'm like, all right, well, I don't know what the hell that means, Ryan, but why don't you walk us through it?
Yeah, man. So two guys I want to talk about this morning. First of all, part of this remarkable season is CMC's play. So I'm going to talk about what he's doing this season and why that's so remarkable and what it means historically speaking from the 49ers perspective. So first of all, CMC is leading the NFL in rushing yards with 747 yards. He has 9 rushing touchdowns and averages about 4.9 yards per carry. He also leads all running backs in receiving yards with 339 and has 4 receiving touchdowns. And he's tied for first with Raheem Mostert, of all people, for the most total touchdowns with 13 in the NFL right now. And what's remarkable from a historical standpoint is I was looking at, the best yards per game season throughout the 49ers history. CMC is actually having the 4th best yards per game season by a running back in 49ers history, with 83 yards per game behind Frank Gore in 2006 with 105 yards, Garrison Hurst in 1998 with 98 yards, and Roger Craig in 1988 with 93 yards. So this is the 4th best season by a running back as far as yards per game is concerned. And there's strong history of elite running backs on this team. So speaks highly of what CMC is doing. So that's what I wanted to share in regards to CMC. I got some Brock Purdy stuff, but before I did that, I want to get your take on what I just shared in regards to CMC.
I mean, all of it is incredible. It speaks to how good CMC is and how much of a boost he was for this team. Literally the first week he was here, all the way through last season and into this season. And I love it all. But what is the cost is really the question that I have. All these things are amazing, but what is the cost long term? Running backs at 27, that a lot of times that's when they start to hit the downhill slope a little bit. Now I know he may go a little bit longer because he's really done a fantastic job of taking care of his body his whole career. Not all players are like that, by the way. That's why some players break down earlier than others, but he's done a phenomenal job of that. That being said, the last time he was at this amount of touches in a season, he was basically shut down for the next 2 seasons. And if that happens, I mean, he's 27 now. Next year he goes into 28. If he can't be productive next year, I mean, his career essentially is like the guy is pretty much done. So that's what I wonder. What is the cost? And really, even more importantly, not next season and the season after. The 49ers are trying to win a Super Bowl this season. What is the toll that's happening right now? How is that going to affect things when they need him most late in the playoffs? Those are the questions that I have.
Yeah, I hear your concern. I'm just hoping they win a Super Bowl this year. I mean, if they win
Right.
a Super Bowl
I
this year,
agree.
I could care less what happens next year. Now,
For sure.
whether that happens or not, I don't know. What I did like about this last game, and I'll dive into Brock Purdy stuff here in just a second, but what I did like about this last game is it felt more diverse. Everybody was involved. And even though CMC got a lot of touches and he was the primary focus, some of those numbers were skewed because at the end of the game, they were trying to get him his record, which, I kind of understand. But overall, I felt like the offense was more diverse. Brock Purdy had 26 passing attempts through, just over 3 quarters, which is more passing than we're used to seeing from the 49ers. So I'm hoping that continues and they continue to spread the ball around moving forward. And like you said, man, ultimately I want CMC to be healthy. But I thought it was pretty spectacular from a historical standpoint where he stands.
Well, I I felt that way watching the game as well, but then I went back and looked at how many touches he had. He still had like 23 touches in essentially 3/4 of play. I know they brought him in to try to break the record, but really he sat out a majority of the 4th quarter like everybody else. And when you look at his touches and you add up all the other running backs touches, which was essentially Mitchell, you add up Debo's touches, you add up Kittle's touches, and you add up Ayuk's touches, he still had more touches than all of them combined by like
Yeah.
6 or 7 touches. I'm not for sure on that, but I know for sure he had more, and I think it was by about 6 touches. That's not ideal. It's just not.
Yeah. Yeah. And you brought up somebody that I've been, you know, Elijah Mitchell, man. I think he's just toast, bro. Like I think he ran nine attempts for 2.9 yards per carry. It's Jordan Mason time. I was trying to be positive. We're talking about records and stuff, but since you brought up Elijah Mitchell, that's something that like. Thank you, my guy Josh.
Since you drug me down into the negativity here, let me go down that line. Yeah,
yeah. Elijah Mitchell, man, just doesn't look like it, bro. We need Jordan Mason. I agree with my guy Josh here. Like Jordan, we've been saying this is real in the face. I don't know if it'll actually happen, but at some point, I hope Kyle understands that what he has in Jordan Mason and that Elijah Mitchell might just not be that guy anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. What's Brock Purdy's?
All right. Well, every Tuesday, let me start off by reading some of these things, and then I'll get into the historical standpoint. But every Tuesday, I post Brock Purdy's statistics, how he compares with the rest of the league, where he ranks, and he jumped up in a lot of categories today. So real quick, I'll just read them off. Brock Purdy after week 10, completions 23rd, attempts 26, completion percentage 7th, yards 11th, average yards per catch first with 9.3 yards per game, 11th. His long jumped up from 42nd to 12th with that.
I told you all it took was one. That's
right.
That's the interesting stat. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big one. Passing touchdown, he's tied for 9th with 15th. Interceptions, he's tied for 10th with 5. Sacks, tied for 10th with 16. QBR and rating first in the NFL. So Brock Purdy has jumped up quite a bit after that game.
Can I say this?
Yes,
because
sure.
You do this every Tuesday with these stats, and I love that you do it and you post it on Twitter as well.
Yeah.
And you give like a, hey, he went up or he went down, just how he's trending.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as that long touchdown happened, I immediately thought of you and your Tuesday stat. I swear on everything. That was the first thing that came up, and I was like, well, I wonder where he ranks now. Yeah.
Yeah, big jump from what was it, 42nd to 12th? It's quite a jump.
Yeah.
So that was huge for me. That was the longest completion of the season, longest completion in Brock Purdy's career. So that was huge for him to get that feeling of those explosive plays. I think is great. But yeah, so all that being said, I also looked at how Brock Purdy is trending in yards per game, because right now he's trending. I didn't even tell you his trends, and I should get your take on that before I jump forward. But he's trending 4,399 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. Before I go forward, what's your take on that season? 4,399 yards, 28 touchdowns, 9 interceptions.
I mean,
that's how he finishes.
9 games. I feel like those numbers might be off. I swear I did the calculations and it was a little bit higher. Maybe I did them wrong. It was at like 2 a.m. I'm not going to lie. I'm weird like that. These are the things I do. But either way, I mean, I think that's a pretty damn good season. That's the type of season that this team needs. That's the type of season that you expect from a young quarterback that you think might eventually become the franchise guy. Although I don't necessarily believe that. I think a lot of people do. And I think that if he's doing those things, then he's at least trending in the right direction. And I think that that's where we want him to be. We talked last week and we talked about what do the 49ers need to do to get back on track. And one of the things that we talked about was having the team around Brock raise their game back up. This whole putting it on a second-year player is not ideal. I don't care how great he is. CJ Stroud right now might be putting together the best rookie season of all time. If CJ Stroud was the quarterback of this team and this team was relying on CJ Stroud to be the reason they win a Super Bowl game in and game out, that would not be ideal either. So same thing goes for Brock, still in his second year, still lots of career ahead of him, a lot of learning to do. You don't want every game to be on him. Now, there's going to be a time where it likely will have to be on him. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But for a majority of the season, that's not your path to success. So I think the efficiency in what he's delivering is exactly in line with what this team needs in order to have a chance to win a Super Bowl. So I think he's doing great.